Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning back into the Mummy Means Business podcast. Today, I have a special friend. Hi, Mariam.
Hi.
So, Mariam is a teacher. She's a teacher, an author, dancer, rapper. What? What else? She's the wife of a preacher, mother of a son, and she's pregnant with her baby number 2. Maybe by the time this podcast come, you might be mother of 2, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know how else to describe you. I've known Mariam for a while. I've actually known her since I was about 16. I actually remember going to her 17th birthday. I got invited by one of her cousins to her birthday. And yeah, we've been friends ever since. We've been we used to be in the same dance crew when we were in church together. And now she and her husband are pioneering their own church in Bexley Heath. Yeah.
that is exactly right.
Yes. So we have her today. We're gonna kind of touch on her being an author. So yeah, Mariam, now you're mum, well, of one, and then now you're pregnant with the second one. How has motherhood been for you? Like, are you the mum that you thought you would be, or you not?
To be honest, I think when you're a first time mom, you don't really know what to expect. You have so many people telling you things. You have so many people saying, "Oh, remember to do this and
Yeah.
make sure you do that." And you've got so many opinions and so many people giving their own input. So when I had Marcus 2 years ago, I had no expectation. I felt like, I feel like I just fell into it. I feel like it was just all new to me. It was completely new. Like, I'm talking about breastfeeding. I had no idea what I was doing. It was so messy. It was chaotic, literally.
I think because
I don't know how to explain it. It was.
no, it's crazy because you were one of the first people that was close to me that had a baby.
Yeah, exactly. So there was, sorry, excuse me. There was a few of us that were pregnant at the time,
Yeah.
in our church and in our friendship group, but I was due first. So I think it was a bit more pressure because everyone sort of was looking to me like, okay, what do you do? And obviously you have older sisters in church and just friends who have had babies before, but when you go into it, when it's your turn, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, being a first time mom, like I said, the first couple of weeks were chaotic for me. I literally did not know what I was doing. I mean, in terms of breastfeeding, I said I wanted to exclusively breastfeed, and it was really difficult for me and baby to do it because he didn't latch on properly, and then I ended up getting
Oh,
mastitis, and then I ended up getting an infection, and
oh
then
my gosh.
it was just, and I couldn't come out of the house for 3 weeks, and it was chaotic. But
Do you know what? It's funny because you would never have known. Because I remember, like, you're the type of person that, like, you can be going through hell and no one will actually know what's happening to you. But even me, when I first had Xavier, the only reason I kind of not knew what to do, but I kind of knew um what to
expect.
experience, yeah, what to expect, because I've heard stories from you, your mastitis, when you were saying that,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, obviously not to be grotesque, but you said your boobs were hard, like rock hard.
That is exactly it. They were inflamed. They were
Oh my gosh.
literally, I couldn't even put clothes on. That's how hard they were. And I've never experienced, obviously, your body has gone through so much change when you've had a baby. So I completely was unaware. I had no idea. And I was scared actually to tell people because I thought if I told people at that time when I was going through it, that I had that and I didn't know what I was doing, it would like make me look weak.
Oh
And
no.
so at that time I just didn't say anything because I just thought, well, maybe this is normal. But obviously it wasn't. And then I did end up speaking out. I did end up asking someone, and apparently they had it as well. And I was just so happy that I wasn't the only one at that time. And I was able to go to the doctors, get it treated. and then my self-confidence was gained a bit much more better, and it just made me realize at that point that actually we just need to talk out as mums. Like if we are going through things, or if there's something that we don't understand, there's so many people in the community like of motherhood, like we can just literally just ask for advice or ask if anyone has been through whatever it is that you're going through, and most likely they have, most likely. So I really really, I think that was one of my big learning curves, like just to speak, just to let people know what it is that you're going through, and not be afraid, not be intimidated, not be insecure, and just think that, you know what, actually we're all you're first time mom, you're not going to get it right. You learn as you grow, you learn as you
definitely.
So yeah.
Was it hard with the whole bonding? Because obviously the first few weeks, breastfeeding is kind of the opportunity to bond even more with your child. And I remember I had a day where Xavier wasn't eating, like he just couldn't latch on at all. Like, and I like that day I'll never forget. Like Dio was with me, my husband was with me, and literally he didn't know what to do. Like we called the midwife, and the midwife was giving us this excuse, and I was literally like in tears. Like the whole day I was just crying and crying because my baby's crying. He's only like 1 week old. He's screaming, he wants to eat, and I'm trying, like I've tried everything. And I remember my mum and my mother-in-law were there, and I think it's like an old school mentality.
Oh no, they're just that's like, the worst.
Come on, why didn't you just put it in him, just push it. And then because obviously my mother-in-law was there, I didn't want to act up, and I didn't want to I didn't want to portray myself in a certain way that I would regret. So I just had to just shut my mouth and just like try. But in my head, I was like, can you stop? Because I'm trying my best to feed my child, but he just can't latch on. And that was like the worst day of my life. And that was just one day, let alone, you said you had 3 weeks of, you couldn't even leave the house.
Yeah. And you know what? Everything that you're saying is completely similar. I experienced the exact same thing. Probably not the mum-in-law one. That one must have been really difficult.
Oh my God. Yeah. I understand. I think they just mean well, but it's just not the time. Almost.
Yeah. No, it was really hard. It was I completely had the same story. Marcus didn't latch on for days, and he lost so much weight. I mean, usually the health visitors say that children are only supposed to lose 10% of their body weight when they're born. And Marcus had lost 7% after 2 weeks he was born. And so they weren't worried, but they were monitoring his weight because, when he was born, he was quite big. He was 8 pounds 8. Yeah. And he had lost a lot of weight because he wasn't getting enough milk. Yeah. And so that gave me so many doubts, because a lot of people, especially my mum, people were just saying, you just need to just bottle feed now. Like, it's obviously not working for you. Just bottle feed, just, no, it's the same thing, nothing's going to, but, in my, I don't know if you want to say delirious state. I just wanted to persevere. I was thinking, why can't I do it? Like, why? I shouldn't be incapable of doing it. Yeah. And so my husband really helped me. I think he was the one that really encouraged me and just said, and he, not to go into so much detail, but he really, really helped me in terms of physically to get the milk out.
Yeah.
Literally, I felt like a cow, like milking so that at least the baby Marcus at the when he was a baby at the time could get some milk. And it was a slow start. It did take about 3 weeks in order for him to put on his weight back, and now he's humongous, to be honest.
I'm telling you, if you see him now, he's like a little man, the little 2-year-old. But it's true what you said at the beginning, like, because the same thing happened to me, but you wouldn't have known. Like, now that we're speaking about it, that's one of the reasons why I even wanted to start this podcast, because a lot of these women, especially you, like, you've had kids for a few years now, so you've kind of crossed over the hardship hurdle, and it's good to kind of speak to other mums who maybe they don't know that they're going through the same thing. Because Xavier lost weight as well, and he was a small baby. He was like 5.5 pounds. So in the first week he lost 8% of his weight. And the same thing that my husband was literally like, we had to pump like hand express into a syringe so that I can at least give Xavier some food. And that was difficult, but it's good to kind of, it makes me feel better. I know that's really bad, but Makes me
No,
feel
because
better to
it's
hear that you
you
can
you
just
you
like
feel
quickly.
normal again. You
Yeah,
feel like,
it,
oh, I'm not the only one. Actually, like
not
it does
crazy.
happen to people. It doesn't matter how strong you look on the outside, but things do happen in secret, and it's not bad. Like it's not a bad thing. It makes you stronger, personally, I think.
Yeah, so moving on to the business side.
Mm.
So you were a teacher, like I think since knowing you, all I heard is you wanted to be a teacher. You wanted to English, 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 and you finally did it. But
Yeah.
then, but then this year you decided to kind of take the plunge and like do
Mm.
something daring by actually leaving your full-time job, like almost, is it
Yeah.
your dream job, would I say? And then you
Well,
decided to go into becoming an
yeah.
author, which is, a more creative side of things. Like
Yeah.
what was the reason? Like, was it a really hard decision to kind of do that?
Um, well, yeah, English is my passion. I've loved English ever since I was in primary school. My mum even knows it. I remember my teacher at the time in year two, excuse me, was
Year
saying
two,
that
you remember?
yeah, I do. I do remember when I was in year two, actually. I think I was 7.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's a good age. Like, yeah, definitely. I remember. And he said, like, this girl is going to be she's definitely going to take English, like, to higher education. And it stuck with me because it's not like I was the best at it. I didn't actually get A stars in English.
Yeah.
But it was just that I loved everything about it. I just
It's just a passion.
yeah, exactly. And so actually, when I went into secondary school, I actually wanted to be a journalist. So I didn't know what type of journalist, not like the ones on news or anything like that, but just more so, yeah, I don't know, travel journal, whatever. I just wanted to be a journalist because obviously that involved writing and it
Yeah.
involved, just experiencing different places and different things and whatever. And then it changed because I don't know. I just realized actually, when I was in secondary school, there was a teacher who was absolutely amazing. It's always that one teacher, isn't it,
Yeah,
that
that's
just
the thing. You
inspires you.
remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was my English teacher. She was my form tutor as well. And she was just absolutely amazing. She was pregnant with twins at the time.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And I remember I just thought, wow, this lady's incredible because she was still coming into work with the same enthusiasm, same passion, and she just wouldn't give up on us. Especially, I was quite not naughty, but I was a bit, talkative, if
Naughty.
you want to say. I was talkative in class, so it was quite annoying if someone's trying to teach and then there's just someone in the background just constantly yapping. And she would treat us all fairly, and she just never gave up on me, and she was just really one of my inspirations as to be an English teacher. And so because of that, when I went into college, I studied English again, and then when I went into uni, I studied English again. And I said, you know what, actually, I'm going to be a teacher. And so, yeah, when I finished uni, I started in a secondary school and I trained. And yeah, it was just the best thing ever. I was there for 4 years. So I was literally in not my dream job, but I did what I want. I was complete. Like
Yeah.
it was what I wanted. But I just remember when I had my son, I always said to myself that actually when I give birth or when I have children, I don't actually want like my work to consume me. And especially with teaching, you're teaching everyone else's kids, but then your children also need
Yeah.
teaching, and that always
It's
stuck.
a demanding job, isn't it,
It's
teaching?
so demanding, so demanding. And every time I would cut, it's different when you're single. You come home, you come back to your husband or whatever, and then you can just sort of get on with life. You don't really need to, if you can cook, you don't have to
Yeah.
cook, whatever. But when you've got children, no,
It's a,
it's completely different, completely. So I always said when I have my child or when I start having children, I am gonna stop working. And
so that's it. So you made, before you even had kids, you kind of made that decision that
yeah,
motherhood was your priority, that you really wanted to be the best mom you could be.
100%.
That's
But I
amazing.
had no intention of saying I was going to be an author. And that was what's funny because a lot of people think, oh, so you stopped working in order for you to be an author. But actually, no, that wasn't the case. So when I said that I actually want to stop working, and I started praying. I said, God, like, what would you want me to do now? Because I don't really want to be idle, just at home sitting down. I'm quite a busybody.
Yeah.
It's quite bad actually. Sometimes I do too much, and it's it's not good. But
I understand. I'm exactly the same.
You're the same, exactly.
Literally.
So I said, I was just praying, and I was just like, God, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't want to just. I want to make a difference in people's lives. I still want to use my creative ability. I still want to do things, but I want it to fit around my life as opposed to work consume me. So I remember I just started writing. I just started getting inspired. I started writing again, and the reason why I say again is because I used to write when I was younger. You know, most of the people always used to write stories and things like that. Oh, I can hear somebody in the background.
I know. Xavier's now ready for me to pick him up. But yeah, keep going. If you can hear some noises, literally just my son just screaming.
Hi, Xavier. Yeah, so I literally just said that I want to start. Well, no, I just started writing, like I said, just inspired here and there through conversations through mothers, and because I used to write when I was younger, and obviously when you have a child as well, you start reading children's books more as well, isn't it? You know, you get them as gifts, and I wanted to encourage my children or my son to start reading as well, and so that was part of my inspiration, and I thought actually.
Yeah, just to plug in your book. So Mariam has a children's book called We Are All Special, which is available on Amazon. Where else it was available? On Waterstones, at your local bookshop.
Yeah, and Barnes and Noble.
And Barnes and Noble. So it's a really, really great book. You kind of just you plug it in rather than me.
Well, yeah, exactly. So yeah, my book's available in all those stores that the Keys mentioned. And it's all about a boy who was inspired through my son, and I wanted him to be able to see himself in books, because a lot of the children's books that I read, they were predominantly white characters, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's the age that where we've grown up thinking actually there's not, it's not a problem, it's fine, but actually we've moved on in an age and an era where I think that our ethnicity should be portrayed within books, like, Asian, Black, Portuguese, Spanish, wherever you are. I think we should all be able to relate and pick up a book and see ourselves in them. So I wanted to do that with my son, because like I said, I was interested in literature anyway, and I wanted to introduce reading and books to my son. And so when I was on that venture, I decided that actually no, I wanted to make a change, because I wasn't happy with the fact that all the books that I was getting were either all fairy tales, they were all nursery rhymes. Yeah, that's fine, but I wanted something with content and meaning. So yeah, really.
So was it hard kind of going from like a stable 9 to 5 or like kind of routine kind of job and moving into a creative one, which brings in unstable income? Because obviously you're used to getting a certain amount a month. You can rely on that. You have your bills set out, especially with a child.
Yeah.
And then now it's kind of up in the air. It's kind of it's a performance led kind of role that you've gone into as an author. So the more books you sell, the more money you make.
Exactly.
So is that transition quite difficult?
To be honest, it wasn't, and the reason why I say that is because luckily my husband, by the grace of God,
he's got a good job.
Yeah. no, it's by the grace of God. He became self-employed just over 2 years ago now, and through that, it was as if my salary and his salary was just merged into one. So when I stopped working, he became self-employed. So nothing really changed, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It was difficult more for me because I now had to start budgeting. And I was like, no, I can only get... Basically. Yeah, exactly. Like on my
I can't
side.
shop in Topshop as much anymore.
Yeah,
I can't buy that £100 boots anymore.
No. But yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, to be honest, I did. I had to calm down a little bit with the shopping and a little bit with the spending because I do like to spend a lot. So it did teach me. And yeah, and your focus goes away anyway. When you have kids, you don't really spend more. You don't really
Yeah.
spend that much on you anymore. It's more of the children.
Yeah, I find
So
myself when I go out, like I'm constantly looking for things for
yeah, that's
Xavier
it. That's
rather than myself.
all the time, and that's how I am. Literally, I'm like, oh, Marcus will like this. Oh, let me get that for Marcus.
Yeah.
And you forget about yourself. You forget the whole reason why you even went out. You needed to go and buy, bread, but then you ended up buying something for the
I'm
baby.
telling
So,
you, it's crazy.
so yeah, no, it wasn't a challenge really, but more so a challenge for me just learning how to budget on my side and stuff like that. So yeah.
So what kind of has been like your step by step journey? Because I know that obviously writing the book and having the idea to write the book might have been like the easy part, but in terms of securing a publisher to publish a book and then going and having like a book launch, which you had recently, like what was kind of the step by step journey into getting to that place?
Okay, so quite a few people actually have asked me this. So if they're listening, this would be good
Useful.
just to get it all because obviously I've had to write up messages and like voice notes to all those who wanted to know. So basically when I was on the venture, when I was looking no, when I started writing, I didn't actually have an intention of getting it published. It was only through speaking to a friend that made me realize actually I could publish my work because I want it, like I said, I was praying to God and I was like, I want it to make a difference in society. I want to be able to meet other mums and I want to be able to share my vision across society. So I think because of that passion and that desire and through my prayers, I think God did open up a door. And I'm not saying it just to sound super spiritual, but what happens is on that note, when I had prayed, I did start looking for publishers. So a friend advised me of a particular publisher that because she's already written 2 books. Her name's Desiree Akobia. So she's written Diaries of a Visionary and she's also written another book called I Am Bodell. So she advised me of a publishing company and I approached them, I pitched to them my work and they got back to me within 6 weeks, considering I had been doing this for over a year and nobody had got back to me. And
Oh
when they did
wow.
get back to me, they were all rejections. So I was quite discouraged. So a lot of the time, people just give up in that time. So a lot of the people who are on this venture, they do give up easily. But I have to tell you that if you want to be a published author, you cannot give up because it takes some people 5, 10,
Years,
it takes
yeah.
people years. So that's why I say it is really the grace of God because he's the one that opened up that door for me. So when they got back to me, they loved my work, even some of the other work that I put towards them. They want to publish later on in the year. So yeah, it was a hard process, literally. So you just have to be fervent. You have to be intentional, and it's literally like job hunting. Like when you're sending out your CV, you're approaching different organizations, different publishers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So literally it was just the grace of God. But yeah, you do have to. I wrote down all the publishers that I wanted to see, like I could see my book in, if you want to say, and there were over like 25, and I approached and emailed, cover letter, all of that. I did it all and none of them got back to me, but it was just through a friend, through a conversation, and it was
And then you got that one.
that was
So
the one.
how long was it altogether from like having the idea to getting it published? Was that like a year long?
Yeah, just over a year actually, maybe a year and a half.
That's amazing.
I was on maternity leave, so actually no, sorry, just over. Oh yeah, I was on maternity leave, and I just literally got back to work maybe like 2 or 3 months before, so that was when the idea happened, and then I only worked part time, so during my days off, was when I started pursuing this like more fervently. Yeah, so yeah, I would say just maybe 2 years in total.
And you did it.
I did it.
I
Honestly, I
know.
can't believe it.
But why did you pick that genre though of like doing the children's books, especially, you know, targeting kids who are like of ethnic minorities to see and doing a book where they can see themselves in it. Why did you pick that specifically?
So like I said previously, it's because I was inspired through, like I said, conversations with other parents, but also when I was reading books with my son, I wanted him to be able to see himself in books, because all the literature that we read, all the kids' literature stuff, it was just mainly just not empty. I mean, it's good entertainment, but I just thought, actually, I want him to be able to pick up a book and, relate to it and see himself, see skin color, see, so that's actually what inspired me. And yeah, it's the genre mainly is God inspired. It's all about God's morals and different themes about, I won't go into it because obviously it's going to be the next.
And the funny thing is that like the illustration on the book looks exactly like your son.
Yeah.
Even at the book launch. I know it wasn't intentional, but at least it's good for when he's older. You can actually show him that this was all for you, and he'll be like, oh, actually, this actually looks exactly like me, like the hair, the eyes, like everything.
Exactly. But what's funny is other parents have said that. I had a parent, one of our dear friends as well. She called, or she both videoed me the other day, and she said that her son picks up that book every day because he thinks that it looks like him. So I think it's just the fact that, black boys with curly hair, big eyes, it's just,
any little black boy can pick it up and see themselves in it.
That's basically it. That's exactly it, really. Yeah.
And what was your husband's thought, through all of this? Like, when you mentioned to him that you didn't want to leave work, was he kind of all for it? I know, like, Dao said to me so many times, my husband's mentioned that, he'll be happy for me to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, but I love work.
It's difficult
so much,
though, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. It's so difficult.
But he's like, you know what? If you want to just stay at home, I don't mind. I want to be the breadwinner. You just stay at home, cook for me. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Of course, you'd love it.
Sure.
No. Aaron was absolutely. So my husband's name's Aaron. He was absolutely supportive in every, and I think because when we got married, like I said from the beginning, when we had discussed in the future having children, and I said that I didn't want to work, he already knew. So it wasn't like a shock to him when I said I don't want to work anymore. It was just like, yeah, we already discussed this, prior to before we got married. And we've been married for 8 years this year. So, when I said I didn't want to go back to work, he was completely fine. But it was more of a shock to him when I said, I've started writing books. So that was like, is that what you've been doing on your maternity leave,
That's what you've been doing when you've been on your laptop.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so he was really he was really supportive and encouraging, because I think not that he just assumed that I would just there's nothing wrong with just staying at home and looking after your children full time. But I think because he knew that I couldn't just sit there and literally just be idle. I had to do something. I wanted God to use me in another way. So he was just very supportive.
And the things I think is really great to actually hear that, because, you can have the best of both worlds. You can, focus on your child. Your child is still your number one priority. Having a home is still your number one priority, but you still can have something for yourself, like put your name to something that can be of your own, almost. And that's what you're doing with this book launch. But how important is it for you to have like friends and family support you, especially having a new venture? You kind of need all the support you can get.
It's so important, Vicky. Honestly, it's the most important thing ever. I can't stress it so much, because from the very beginning, it was filled with people. I mean, if it wasn't for Desiree, who had pointed me in the direction of the publisher, I wouldn't have been where I am today anyway. So that was just the support of a friend. She didn't have to tell me. She didn't have to. I mean, a lot of people are quite
secretive with their
secretive. That's it. That's exactly the word. They're very secretive, and it's just like, well, why? We're friends. We're sisters in Christ. We're friends. it just didn't make sense to me, like, you know. So for me personally, when I was searching for people that are authors, because there's not really many Christian authors, really. There isn't any, like, I know of. It's
Yeah.
only now that I've started to research up about them, and a lot of them live in America.
Yeah, there's not
But
much British Christian
yeah,
authors.
there's not
Yeah.
much. So obviously having Des as one of, you know, a Christian author and someone who was accessible and a friend, you know, she it was a blessing. And so yeah, family was supportive as well. They were constantly, you know, advertising and like literally friend. Oh yeah, it was so important, and it helped my self-confidence, because times I felt like, oh, do you know what, this isn't going to work. You know, there was times where I thought my book launch is probably just not going to, you know, I had to change the date
Yeah.
because there was other things clashing, and I just thought, well, this is just not going to work anymore.
Yeah,
But
because you did the launch when you were 8 months pregnant, so
I
that's
did. Yeah.
that's crazy on its own. Like, people thought, oh, you probably won't do it because, you know, yeah, you have to do it before you give birth, and you're
That's
giving
it.
birth anytime soon. So
Right. Exactly. So, you know, friends were so supportive, and family. And yeah, I can't, if without them, I don't think I would have been able to do it 100%.
yeah. And what to you is kind of like the biggest challenge in terms of, not, I don't like to use the word juggling motherhood and business, because I feel like that no one ever says to the man like, you're juggling, you know, working and being a father.
Yeah.
But in terms of having both and trying to do both successfully or to the best of your ability, like, what has been the biggest challenge?
I think because I don't view what I do as a business. That's probably why.
Yeah.
So obviously, I know there are other mums who actually have businesses, and so that question would probably cater to them a bit more. But for me, I don't actually see what I do as a business. I just see it as something that I feel that God wants me to do, meaning, you know, it's a part of my day-to-day life, you know, meeting up with mums, meeting up with um you know, social mother groups and stuff like that, introduce, you know, things like that. You know, it's not a burden to me. Like, it's not a business run thing, you know. It's just the logistics side of, you know, the how much you get in terms of book sales and stuff like that. I don't, thankfully, don't have to deal with that because I have a publisher. But I think for me, because I don't view it as a business, it's not it's not really been a challenge yet.
How
So I
about the
say yet.
writing? Like, was it hard kind of, because I know you have a few books like you've written. I know you mentioned you have like 10 books already in place, or is it more?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have like 14 short stories already in place. Like, in terms of writing it and having like Marcus running around, you know, pregnant, having like your other baby kicking you and like rolling around with you, like, was that kind of did you really have to dedicate time for that, or was it just fine?
Yeah, I did have to dedicate time. I definitely did. And obviously you want to spend the most time you can with your child, because your child, like, you know, we were saying in the beginning, is the most important thing, you know.
Yeah.
Um and I think, thankfully, because I worked 3 days a week, on the two, like I said, on the 2 days when I was off and I had Marcus, I would try and divide my time. So, you know, we would go to our regular play groups, but then when he would have his nap, or when he would eat his lunch, or when he would just be playing independently, you know, if I get inspired, then I would write. And usually a lot of my short stories had stemmed from, well, yeah, from things that had happened over the course of the day. So once I put him to bed at night, like, you know, because he goes to bed at about 8, that was when I would be inspired. So I would be sitting on my sofa and I'll just start writing. So yeah, I mean, it was difficult at first, especially with the hunting of the publishers.
Yeah.
100%, that was really quite difficult, because when I was off, those were my only 2 days to try and get as much people to pitch to as much as
Yeah.
possible.
And did you have to go to meetings and stuff and like meet anyone, or was it a lot of
Not
it done online?
physically.
Yeah,
Yeah, not physically, thank God. It was more online.
that's good.
I think that's how the publishing world sector works, which is great. A lot of Skyping, well, not Skyping, but a lot of emailing and
Yeah.
messaging and things like that. So yeah, no. But yeah, I think that was maybe my biggest challenge, trying to juggle the time that I had with my son, so that I could venture and, you know, be a successful author, if you want to say that, and
Yeah, of course, successful
get it
author.
out,
You are
actually publish one.
speak it out into the universe. You're a successful
Yes,
author by God's
I'm
grace.
speaking it out. Yeah, exactly.
So, last question. If you had to give, so if there was a mum that wanted to do exactly what you're doing, she has a kid, she wants to do something else, wants to be an author, maybe for a children's book, what is the like one major advice that you would give her?
Might sound cliche, but I just think you should just continue persevering. Don't give up. Don't be disorientated. Don't be put off by rejection, because you will actually get rejected. And I think a lot of us are scared to face rejection. But I think if you don't face rejection, then you won't ever have a story to tell. Things in life don't come easy. So I think for anyone who wants to particularly write and become an author or do anything that's similar, just don't give up. You just have to keep persevering, keep pressing on, keep pitching, keep emailing, even if it takes 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. If it's something that you want to do, and if it's something that especially God has pressed on your heart, then God will bring it to pass, because it has to. But yeah, so I would just say, just keep just stay encouraged, and just know that it will come to pass. And just surround yourself also with people who are like-minded, and people who want to see you flourish and succeed as well.
I think that's a good one.
So important. Yeah, I think you need to have people around you like that. If you have people who are always doubting and they're just constantly skeptical, then
negative energy,
that's it. You're definitely not gonna get very far. So you need people to be able to just lift you up and inspire you, and just push you in the right direction.
I think that's good advice for any business, not just being an author. Especially you saying don't be put off by rejection. I think that's really important. That's like the greatest advice you can have for any mom who wants to either start a business or do something for themselves. Don't be put off by rejection. But yeah, thank you so much, Mariam. You've been great.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you, Xavier. I know I took mummy's time.
I'm sorry if you heard him throughout. Like, he just didn't want to sleep. He just wanted to listen and talk to Auntie Mariam, didn't you, brother? But yeah, thank you so much, Mariam, for having for being on this podcast. As I said earlier, you can purchase Mariam's book We Are All Special on Amazon, on Waterstones, Barnes and Nobles, at your local bookstore. Feel free to follow Mariam on Instagram at MJ_Ames, which is really weird.
Oh no, it's changed. Mariam James, just Mariam James now.
Okay, Mariam James.
And I've got a website.
Yes, what's your website?
Mariam James also.
Yes.
It's MariamJamesBooks.com.
So if you just Google Mariam James, you'll see all her different details. But yeah, and make sure you subscribe to this podcast. The podcast is available on SoundCloud, on iTunes, on Spotify, and any of your popular podcast apps. And yeah, thank you so much. Next week we have another special guest. We actually have an events designer who will be talking. She's an award-winning events designer. So, and she's also a mum of 5. So she'll be talking about how she juggles both family. No, I don't like using that word juggle. What's an alternative for juggle? How she...
Oh gosh, my English has escaped me.
English teacher. But yeah, we'll be talking to her about how she achieved great success while, having a massive family. But yeah, tune in for that. But thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Vicky, for having me.
Of course.